For more on China's efforts to globalize the currency, Perry Wong, Managing Director of Research at the Milken Institute, joins us. Good to see you, Perry.
Nice to be back.
Let me talk about the significance of this. Look, we're making a big deal about it because it is a big deal. Why is this so important for our international audience that China gets this included in the SDR?
I think beyond more utilization of RMB, that's quite obvious. I think one of the most important items, for me at least, that is a seal of approval for the quality, the status of a nation that they can contribute on the world stage. And I think, secondly, it also is a seal of approval on the financial reform occurring in China. Now, it's an ongoing process, but it needs some validation.
So that said, if it's included, you're saying it's symbolic because essentially it's the IMF saying, validating that the reforms are happening at a pace that they're happy with. It brings additional credibility to the renminbi. All these things are great, but what about the little issue that we talked about this before, is that the renminbi being strong or weak, how would that impact the currency, you think?
I think the question is not about how weak or how strong the currency is. I think the important thing is that the movement occur based on business condition and economic fundamental. And that's quite important for the currency to be fully convertible and to be a financial product that to be sold on the global stage. I think to be kept as a reserve for foreign governments and foreign central banks. And those are the conditions, I think, that the Chinese government has work to work for, and I think still needs some work to be done. And the pace of the reform in China in financial markets is astounding. Every other day you heard something new. And for example, the Shanghai Free Trade Zone, and China's opening up more free trade zones. And now London is destined to be the largest clearing center, offshore, offshore clearing center. So those are very progressive items.
There's a lot going on. You mentioned earlier about being convertible. For our audience that's not perhaps familiar with that, what does that mean, and what's wrong with it now that needs to be more convertible?
Well, there are, until recently, there are limitations on the foreign investors, even for foreign central banks, or how much they can participate or how they can hedge on the currency movement. And as of September, some of those items are totally open up, so the foreign central banks and sovereign wealth fund can buy the Chinese bond or debt products and can hedge a little bit, or maybe in the later on can fully hedge on those products. So that would actually get rid of or smooth out the risk.
I have an awfully stupid question for you, and maybe you can help me with. A lot of people ask me, we can buy the pound, we can buy the yen, I can go down to the bank and we can do the conversion very easily. But to do the renminbi, if I wanted to convert $100 into renminbi and put it in my bank account here in Washington, D.C., it's not so simple, right? Does any of this help with that effort?
Not yet in U.S., unfortunately. But you can do that in London, or you can do that in Singapore or Hong Kong.
I see. The impact on the people of China, if this gets included in the SDR?
Can you repeat that question again? I'm sorry.
What impact would it have, not necessarily on the businesses, but on the citizens, those doing business in China, if this gets into the SDR?
I think that actually almost, would pave a way for more reform, more changes in Chinese financial markets. And I believe that would be beneficial to all investors, both inside of China or outside of China.